Hello, and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you this week. 2024 is off to a great start. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's great to have you all here. And we'll get started momentarily. Just kind of letting people join the session. We're streaming out there on Facebook and YouTube as well, which is great. And yeah, good to see you all here. Thank you for joining us today. I will give an intro here to the session, then I'll give an intro to our guest for the day. Let me go ahead and spotlight myself, and I will spotlight them as well, and spotlight our co-guest as well. And let me do our intro here. So what I will say is welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. And this is a place where we gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to this radio hour for just $16 a month, and you'll get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as the archival recordings of over 185 episodes in our member area. You can join that using the link bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And we'll also mention up front here that we just completed our most recent masterclass. It was on making the complete shift from ETD tuning to oral tuning with Glenn Bingham. Glenn just finished over a decade with Steinway, where he was in leadership roles and training technicians and sort of working with technicians all over the country and the globe, and working with the Spirio system and so forth. So it was a great session, and you can still, you can't attend live anymore. We encourage you to put next first Thursday of the month on your calendar so you can attend our next session live. But you can access the recording. So we'll get a link into the chat, which will allow you to either access the recording, if you just want to purchase that one, that's the one that interests you, or if you want to subscribe, then that recording will be available in our member area, along with our archive of other master classes. All right, let me give an intro to our guest today. This is Oliver Esmonde-White. We've had him on the show a few times. He has over 5 decades of dedication to perfecting the art of piano technology. He is a true maestro in the field. As the last Canadian to study at the prestigious Baldwin Factory and the first North American to attend the Yamaha Piano Technical Academy in 1986, his journey's pretty legendary. Having played a pivotal role as a rebuilder and concert tech, Oliver's fingerprints can be found on thousands of recordings, audio productions, and televised performances. His tireless commitment to pushing the boundaries of excellence has earned his shop the accolade of the most modern in Canada, according to Yamaha Canada. And we've seen tours of that as well. Pretty cool workshop, not just in Canada, but comparatively across the globe. So welcome, Oliver. And then, of course, we have Wayne Ferguson, who's also a star Canadian technician. And he's joined us to kind of chime in on what Oliver wants to share today. But welcome to the show, Oliver.
Thank you.
Wayne.
Lovely to be back. And I hi there, Gandalf.
Oh.
Now I feel like you had your hair like put back or something last time you joined us, Wayne.
It was in a ponytail, so it's sort of no one knows it's been this long. So
I thought you got a haircut or something. So But yeah,
No,
it
it's
looks good. It looks good both
Thank
ways.
you.
That's good.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
He's a handsome guy. What can I say? All right. Let's start to dive in here, Oliver. I mean, you and I have been sort of just having some email chats and texts over the past several months. And I know, what I find exciting about what you're doing is, you're innovating, and that's always fun, and I know, and other people know, who are trying to do different things and new things. It doesn't always work out, or you got to try, whatever. Um, what was it? Famously, was it Thomas Edison, I think, or Benjamin Franklin, or whatever? I had 99 things that didn't work until I got the one that did. So, there's a lot of work that goes into developing new things, and just want to recognize that. And really excited to hear and share about what you're doing. So where are you at in this process of developing this new type of upright piano action since we last talked?
Oh boy, we've made huge strides, both business as well as technological. A few breakthroughs in how we're going about it, and I can share some of that with you. And in fact, this will be really the first time that the public gets to see some things, which means that I'm moving some things that I could actually patent into the public domain. And that's all, there's a reason for that, but patenting is something that everybody wants to invent. But boy, I'll tell you, you've got to be careful what you wish for. However, I have a few things that I could show you, which I think are going to be maybe even groundbreaking in our industry, which today I'm giving to the world. One of the things is, and you won't even know what it is. Well, it's
remove the other spotlight so that we can see you full screen here. Let's see here. Yeah. What is this?
We 3D printed this, but this is essentially a hammer rail, an action rail, and you pretty much standard, except for, if you'll notice, that there's slots there. And what that allows us to do is to slide a hammer or a damper or a whippen along the rail and align it to any piano, so that if somebody wants to retrofit using one of these mechanisms, it becomes kind of fun. You just slide the parts along until they're aligned with the capstans, and then build from there. So this should make the job really easy. And by controlling this area here, we know exactly what the geometry will be, which means that the job of learning how to do it will, once you've done it once, you're going to be repeating the same process. So that was one of the huge problems we ran into, is we discovered the more actions we were looking at, tiny little differences between the jack height or just a whole bunch of weird things that manufacturers, even in the same company, the same make, the same height, they have different actions, which meant retrofitting became a challenge, and we were getting a little bit discouraged about that, because we didn't know how we could teach everybody how to find whatever the recipe is for every different piano. And by making our own rails and doing it this way, it's one size fits all. So somebody's asking if we can put it onto an existing piano. We're going to have the whole thing with the rails, with the everything ready to go in, pull out one action, put in another action. And I can get into
So I see. So you pull out one action, you put in another action, and then the adjustability is key, so that you can do the hammer to string fit and everything else, and you don't have to worry about what was in manufacturing that action. You don't have to think about what that is ahead of time. The tech who's installing it can do that.
That's right. There's so many variables you'd have to figure out. If the rail is different by a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch, then now you have to change all kinds of other configurations, and that just became a quagmire of details that we didn't think were going to be convenient for most piano technicians to be able to do it. It's not brain dead. You have to be a really good technician to do this anyways, but it went beyond being a reasonable job to being, wow, this is like, you really have to know what you're doing to a degree that wasn't reasonable. So now we've got it down that we think that a reasonably well-trained piano technician will absolutely be able to do a retrofit job in 3 days.
Great. So I'm realizing as we talk, we're kind of diving right in here, and I'm sure some people who are on the session or listening to it have been exposed to what even we're talking about. But I'm realizing tell people why are we installing new actions in pianos? What have you developed here, just to give a brief recap before we get updates on it?
Historically, Daryl Fandrich started this on January the 31st, I think it was in 1981, on his birthday, according to Heather. And he decided he was going to make a new piano action. And we're now 43 years later. He got it done, but it wasn't a practical action. It couldn't be regulated properly. But what he managed to do is make the upright piano more sensitive and more musical than the grand action. So the musician experience, I hear time and time again at this point, it's ridiculous how often I hear it at this point. It's like, okay, yeah, it's just more fun, better, more sensitive than most grand pianos. So a $10,000 upright or a $6,000 upright can get you to what a lot of $40,000 grands can't do. They're more fun.
And we probably went over this in previous sessions, but is this something that can improve the grand action as well? I mean, I know you're focused on the upright action, but is it something where you can apply the same principle to a grand action, or is it just different because it's different angles and there's different technology would be needed to improve the grand action to the degree that you're talking about?
As far as I'm concerned, the grand action is pretty good. If we just do what our ancestors knew how to do, stop fooling around with the geometry and all this, and just found one that we liked and just duplicated it, we wouldn't be even having a question about grand piano actions. It boggles me that 200 years pretty much after Erard, and at least 150 years after we got the grand action perfectly correct, that so many manufacturers are still screwing up, and that we have any questions at all about maintenance, but we do. So no, this does not apply to grand pianos, but the principles of Erard from 1820 to 1850, that all his inventions, the principles were reanalyzed by Darrow, and he applied all of the grand piano principles to the upright. And he's absolutely the first to do that. So, it's at this point, there's a whole bunch of science people saying that it's the third important invention in piano history. The first being Cristofori in 1708 or whatever. And what did he do? He made an action that could give you a piano, a soft, and a forte, a loud. So he just threw that in a harpsichord, essentially. And that was your first piano, and that was the first revolution. He did a really good job of that for the limited resources. The second big revolution was Erard. And what did he do? Well, the double escapement with synchronicity and a whole bunch of other principles that we don't like to talk about because it's a big mouthful. But he got all the principles right. And then we've just been slightly improving it until we stopped doing that about 150 years ago. And the upright was always the poor man's cousin, and we worked on it, but it was always, very unsatisfying. And Daryl got that solved, and then he handed over to me to make it that it's usable. So now we can mass produce, we can retrofit. It's really easy to regulate. I can show you all of that stuff. We got that down. We really got that down. I'm so thrilled. And we finally, another bit of news is the Charles Walter factory in Indiana, a legendary American company. They have signed on with to introduce our actions into their upright piano. So that's kind of new. And we're moving down that road. So it's really moving along, the whole project. And yeah, we got a lovely success at the PTG convention where we had one of our pianos, and I didn't have a negative comment from anyone. Rather the opposite. We were told nice things about what we were doing and nothing but. So people got it. You touch it, you go, wow.
Very cool. I mean, well, congratulations on all that. I don't know that I've actually tried one myself. So
nope. But you can go down the road. Indiana is not far from Chicago. It's about a 3-hour trip, and there. Or if you're going to the NAMM show, one of our pianos will be brought there by the Walters to the NAMM show. It'll be in the Pearl River booth, and they want to bring it to the world.
And you're headed to NAMM this year, and that's coming up in the next week or so, right?
I'll be there on Friday. Yeah, in less than a week.
Great.
May I just add a couple of comments?
Yeah, hop on in.
When Oliver was testing this, I think it was about maybe 8 months ago, Oliver, maybe a year ago, you brought a piano to Toronto. We went to a dealer in Toronto. I called several of my customers. One gentleman was a guy named Bill King, one of the top jazz guys in Toronto, has a radio show. So I asked him to come in, sit down and try this upright piano. And after he played it, he said, this is a game changer. This was like way better than played. He could play faster and better on this piano than he could on any grand piano that was at Michael Remini's, and he's got all the top brands there. And Michael Remini at the time, he was blown away, and he says, we have to have this product in our store to have people have this opportunity to try it. So I just want to give you that. That was a sort of a pre-test before Oliver had gone down to PTG and doing this other effort. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that we're at this moment here in piano history where, for example, I don't think spinets are even being manufactured anymore, for example. And the grand piano, it's sort of a catch-22. The grand piano is kind of the legacy prestige instrument that you can sell some of to maybe the wealthy clientele. And then there's this movement away from pianos just simply due to the complications involved with having a piano. Oh, it's big, and where am I going to put it, and how am I going to move it? People are, by the way, I remember, when I first got a mortgage back in 2005, the advice was, don't use those adjustable rate mortgages. That's, then you'll get yourself into trouble because the rate's going to change after a couple of years, and you don't know where you're going to be at, and all of a sudden you'll have to pay more. And I believe that at the moment, but recently got advice to get one of those adjustable rate mortgages because on average people move like every 3 years these days. People are moving all the time. And so imagine if you've got a giant piano that you also have to move. I mean, it just doesn't make it that much easier. And so the upright piano is an interesting case. It has a lot of potential to fill a need of having an instrument that's more compact. People are being more efficient these days, and um, and it's not, it doesn't have to be so much as what it was. I think you're right, Oliver. In the past, it was just the poor man's version. Okay, you want a piano, here's a cheaper type of piano that you can have. But if you look at something like David Clavin's, he's taken upright piano to a whole new level, literally. You got to climb a flight of stairs to play this upright piano, and that thing's not a poor man's anything. That's a pretty pricey, bespoke, custom instrument that's crafted with very intentional design. So, and I can imagine, yeah, why wouldn't you want to have the best action possible in those instruments as well? And he's also manufacturing now even smaller upright pianos, 64 key instruments, una corda instruments, and things like that. And I think I'm helping to import some of them, and I'm seeing, people are really liking these instruments, these upright instruments.
I think my feeling is that the heyday, which we always thought was behind us, I have a feeling, and I can see how it could become true, that we can recuperate the industry. I absolutely see it. So the piano, I think we have a fabulous future, but it needs a few visionary kinds of people to do that. Yeah, David, I think right now the ratio worldwide is about 85% uprights and 15% grands. That's just locally. You're going to get big homes and it's only grands, and other places, well, it's all downtown apartments and it's all only uprights. But essentially, there's a lot more uprights than grands. Always have been.
Let me take a pause here in the conversation, and I want to say, if people are watching it on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to sign off on the social media streaming, and that's just to encourage people to join into the Zoom session and join us live here. And so we're going to post a link out in the chats in how you can register to join us in the Zoom call. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, we'll see you sooner, see you later. Come on in and join us for the conversation. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So Oliver, I want to hear more about, just this process of innovation. We've talked about it on previous programs. What I'm really impressed with what you've done is you've gotten a movement behind it. You've got, I think, universities involved and government grants and things like this. And I'm really impressed with that, because I feel like, when you started talking about that stuff as a person in the piano industry, I just never even thought about that. Oh, should I look for grants or whatever to do? I mean, to be honest, I should be looking for grants to be doing like what I'm doing right now, right? And I think I did a little bit, but I kudos to you for really taking this path and really having some success in it. But tell us about what this path has been like for you so far, and what's ahead. We'll go into what's ahead after that.
I mean, we live in an era where, science is so important, and so many of the things that even just showing you what I have here. This was any of these parts here that you see were all printed. They're made in the room next door. You can design things yourself. You can test them. You can do so much. But am I an engineer? Do I know about engineering things? What I'm going to do without a scientist with me is make a mess. And if you're a piano technician, a regular piano technician, and have ideas, you probably don't have the money to hire a team of engineers, get it all tested, go down that road. So good ideas kind of they stay good ideas and they die. And I thought way back that I better find out how to overcome that. And really, financially, the only way of overcoming it is, first of all, having a workshop that's large, so a bunch of people that help share some costs and develop things. And second of all, go and talk to the government who invest in research and development, because they want industry to happen. And I think we all know in North America, for example, the American and Canadian and every other government, they all want to try and get some more manufacturing and back into on this side of the oceans. So there's a whole movement, and I would say there's also something called the circular economy, which is to try and recycle things. But there's lots of things that we can do that are innovative, that are difficult to do as an individual. So where are you going to turn? Well, you can turn to your other piano technicians, your colleagues, which is the first place to go. And then after that, you better start looking to society, which means government. To talk to the government, you have to exist, which sounds a little bit silly. Like, of course, everybody knows about piano technicians. But in fact, when I started trying to talk to the government here, they said, well, you don't have a category in our binder of jobs. What? We don't exist. So I don't know whether that's true elsewhere in North America, but it was certainly true here. So I had to do a whole bunch of studies to become, quote unquote, legally existing, rather than being, so like a janitor. Well, the profession of janitors for the government doesn't exist. It's not something that if they wanted to exist, then they would have to form an association, and it's a real pain. But we did that, and I'm now accredited with the government, and now I can talk to them, and now they can help me. So that's one of the things. When people have ideas about patenting things, I mean, I can't tell you the number of times piano technicians say, I have a great idea. Sometimes it's a great idea. I'm going to patent it. And quite frankly, I haven't come across very many piano technicians that have actually done that, other than Daryl and Dell and a few others, but it's really tough. And if you patent something worldwide, beware, because you're into a few $100,000 worth of expenses. So, and then that only gives you the right to sue somebody. It doesn't,
which also costs money.
Yeah, which also costs money. So, so as far as I'm concerned, sharing is the only way to go, because it's the only realistic thing, as much as possible. However, bringing this action to the world, there's a few innovations that we have patented. In fact, I have 5 patent pendings right now. The one that's most important is this ring that the white thing here that you can see that moves back and forth. I'll just slide it, and it's adjusted by an Allen key here, and it pushes this ring, and it tightens or weakens the torsion spring, which is exactly the same torsion spring that you would find in a grand piano whippet. So that's worth it, because according to the studies, might be worth something like $1 billion over the course of the patents.
Now, is that in the piano domain only, or does that estimate come from piano doing only with other stuff? Wow, that's really fascinating.
Yeah. There's a few other innovations I could show you. This is just for fun. I'll show you a couple of things. You start making things, but this is a rail, a modular rail, which we put hammer return springs on, and we can slide these down. So again, the modular idea, and the tension on that spring is also screw adjustable. So you can adjust that to within 1 gram. And this whole rail here, for what it's worth, you can see through it, as you can see right to the spoon. So if you wanted to adjust the spoon there, people that have trouble doing spoon adjustments, well, we could make this. These are all prototypes that we couldn't even think of doing and finding out what the problems are if we didn't have 3D printers, if I didn't have people around me that do that. And I come up with an idea and it happens. So it's really cool. So I think there's a whole world out there that's fascinating that most piano technicians don't have much access to, which is all of this science stuff, SolidWorks. In Europe, they teach this in the schools, by the way, the piano technology schools. They teach SolidWorks and CNCing and 3D printing and designing. So all of those things can be done. Like, here's another nifty little thing, which is, I don't know whether I can show it that you can see, but it's 55.
Just angle it off to the side a little bit and maybe
55 grams. There it is. Is that about right?
Angle it a little bit so that the other way.
There. Now
there you go. You could see 55 on it.
So
yeah.
We just printed 55 in the bottom, but this is a printed 55 gram weight. So we use that because that's the down weight in our uprights.
Oh, that's also a 3D printed.
3D printed, yeah. Who knew? But try and get 55 gram weight. We make this ourselves for, maybe $3 or $4. You can get 50 grams for maybe $10, $15, but 55 grams you can't get. So you'd have to go up to a specialized place, and it would cost a lot of money. We can just do it ourselves. So all of those kinds of things are really fun, and science is involved. So it goes past what I was exposed to as a piano technician for the first 40 years of my career. The last 10 years have been really science oriented.
Yeah, that's great. It's amazing stuff. I mean, and I've been in the scientific community. I've had my PhD in biology, neuroscience. I worked in a lab. And interestingly, I would say I was more of a theoretician analysis type than an experimentalist, so I did signal processing, audio signal processing, for example, and I would do data visualization and things like that. And all that to just say, experimentalism is a very specific skill. And you're doing a bit of design, but also experimentation, right? Because you're running tests on these things to see their functionality and so on and so forth. But it's just it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of diligence to kind of get through these processes.
Yeah. And
can I make a comment?
Yeah, go for it, Wayne.
I just want to say that Oliver, like when I started, we were technicians, we learned along the way, but there was a certain point that Oliver took that turn where he wanted to learn more, or sometimes, Oliver, we were talking earlier about how we came across things by accident. We didn't know what we didn't know. And when you went off to Japan, as with I went there, that was next level. We didn't know what we were going to experience. You attended many trade shows, factories. It was a real eye-opener. And it was these, I guess, process of being passionate and trying to learn more, meeting more technicians, learning next level. We didn't know at one point there was a next level. We just sort of continued to try to get better, but things just evolved. And that's how Oliver got into this, because he was intuitive, wanting to learn more. Went out many times to see Daryl, other technicians, and it just kind of kept evolving, and he hasn't stopped. That's basically, I think, when it comes to our profession, we take part in shows like this. We want to learn more. We want to try to get to a next level.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This theme, I'm reminded of it, came up so we had this master class with Glenn Bingham on the oral tuning, and we also had a radio hour with him where we talked about this. And this, I was inspired to bring up this concept of the 4 stages of learning, both in our radio hour session and in our in the masterclass as well. And I'll bring it up again because I think it's very applicable to kind of what you're bringing up here, Wade. It's the first stage of learning is called an unconscious incompetence. And it means that you don't have any idea how incompetent you are because you just don't know enough about what you're doing. So you kind of run around happy, go like, hey, I'm pretty great at this, And then the next stage is called conscious incompetence. Okay, well, I met a few people who actually know what they're doing. I ran into a few sticking points, and I'm okay. I kind of starting to realize I don't know as much as I thought I did, right? And that's kind of the thing that is important to get to recognize that no matter how experienced we are, we have these realms of unconscious incompetence that it's good to keep an eye out for them, right? And sort of stay on track with your progress because the best people that I've seen in multiple domains, they're often focused on the fundamentals of whatever they do, very interestingly enough. And they're always learning. They're always learning something new. So the two remaining stages, you get to conscious competence. So now you can be good at something. You have to work at it, right? You have to think, okay, so I'm working to memorize my times tables or whatever it is. I'm listening to the beat rates, tuning the intervals and doing all the checks, and stuff like that. But the next stage after that, that's the stage of, elite athletes and performers and all sorts of domains. That's the unconscious competence. And that hopefully is you get past that moment where you have to think about things in detail, because to really do them well, you actually have to stop thinking about it. You have to know what you're doing, right? You have to practice and get all the details together, but you really need to get to a level where you don't have to think twice. Otherwise, you're not going to do it as well, because that thinking takes effort and it takes away from the performance. So yeah, I think it's just useful to be aware of that, right? And I would say one more thing about it, which I didn't say previously, is there's also another principle called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
Some people use it as a little bit of a joke. So they test people on their abilities at various things. And, you get a score, maybe taking a multiple choice exam or whatever. But then they also ask them, how well do you think you did on that? We did the exam. What do you think your score is? And so the Dunning-Kruger effect is this, there's a curve, and there's if you're really bad at it, yeah, you kind of know you're bad at it. But once you sort of get a little bit, but you're not great, you actually think you're pretty amazing. and then actually there's this interesting effect at the high end where people who actually do really well underestimate the performance. And this is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so it's like, yeah, and David Boyce saying too ignorant to realize they're ignorant. It's almost like I envy being in that state. It's like I don't even know. But yeah, that's also sort of goes along with this whole concept.
I figure in North America we're missing a few ingredients to get the industry back off on track. But one of the ingredients is the science, research and development, or a concentrated effort of people to actually say, well, first of all, study what we need, how to do it, what would put us back in the game. And that's not like a piano technician that should do that. That should be a group of us saying, hey, we dropped the ball 50 years ago, didn't we? We lost our industry in North America, didn't we? So where did we drop the ball? And now as a group, let's ask the question, how can we do better? And if we start asking those questions, then that'll lead us to studies. Well, another study, another government shelf. No, you need those studies to find out what it is you're lacking, where it is you're lacking. Is it only funds? Is it science? Is it it's not reasonable because our prices for labor are too high? What about robotics? There's all of this stuff. And I have a feeling that as a group, if we got together as somebody, quote unquote, was in charge of this kind of thing, that we could do a whole lot better as an industry. And I'm hoping that somebody will pick up that mantle, maybe a group that already exists, and not to mention any. But meanwhile, I'm just going ahead and doing it on my own, but I'm hoping that I won't have to, that somebody else will do all of this stuff. But I'm bound and determined to try and see what I can do in my lifetime to try and rekindle the industry. But just by telling you what I'm thinking, Daryl, an individual, and now myself, we've managed to do what 300 years of piano technicians haven't done. We've improved it. We just proved that there's lots of things that can be done. There's a whole bunch of things that I would like to do. They all take R&D. They could make the piano better, probably cheaper, last longer, and bring us in a slightly different direction. So I believe absolutely that we need to socially think as a group, some of us. So I'm hoping that there will be a little bit of a movement in that direction. Meanwhile, stop complaining, do better. That's what I'm trying to do. So, but if other people are interested, look, do it.
So, we talked about this a little bit on the phone recently, and it's this thing about having optimism about the piano industry. I think that I've talked to people, and there's certain people who are saying, you know what, I don't know. I don't even know if I should stay in this industry. I don't know where it's going. As I sold less pianos than I did last year, or I had less tunings or whatever. I mean, there's certainly people who are doing well as well. But I think just from a objective perspective, it straddles that territory like a horse and carriage. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need horse and carriage anymore. We have cars. and there's no, there are professional, probably horse and carriage repair people, but there's only a handful. Do you know what I mean? Because we've moved on to cars and scooters and all kinds of different things. But the question is, where does the piano fit into all this? Because the electronic keyboard is kind of the car to what the horse and carriage, right? That to the acoustic piano. And people aren't fully satisfied with it. It's kind of, it also is reminiscent of, if I want own a really nice car, it's not a horse and carriage, but it is a very custom design special instrument, right? If I want a Bugatti, right, or one of these, a Ferrari, or a McLaren or whatever, they actually don't even make that many of those. They just make really good ones. And so we're sort of in an interesting domain here with the pianos, because the acoustic instrument is the best. It offers a peak experience, unlike a horse and carriage, put it that way, to a car. And so we're sort of in this domain where we have the potential to work in the very high end if we're working in these acoustic instruments and trading in these acoustic instruments. But we have to be realistic about, people's just the human nature, trying to do what's easiest. Now, you have some interesting opinions about the value of the acoustic piano, and maybe something that's a little bit overlooked in this country in comparison to China or something like that. Can you speak to your thoughts on where you see the piano having a resurgence, or what needs to be done to help people appreciate its value more?
Yeah, well, first of all, if bad pianos disappear, it won't be too soon as far as I'm concerned. And if keyboards are better than those pianos, then buy a keyboard. As far as I'm concerned, with the action that we've produced in the same piano, which now the people at PTG convention heard a Pearl River piano with the same Pearl River hammers, and they were blown away, saying it was the equal of the $45,000 pianos that were right beside it. So the cost was $8,000. So really, the action is really an important feature of getting sound, and we've now overcome that. That's self-serving to say that, but that's what I believe. Having said that, the question is, how come our sales are going down? And how come all of a sudden there's 50 million Chinese people playing the piano, or some crazy number like that? And our entire society has made the mistake of saying that the piano is about music. Well, yes, it is about music. From a social benefit point of view, it does so much for brain development for kids that it should be taught in schools, not because of the musical things, but because of how it would help people to develop their brains to become engineers, doctors, lawyers, business people, programmers, etc. The true value of music is not only the sound it creates, but what it does for the brain. And it's the cheapest, fastest way of connecting a brain according to the science. And that's why the Chinese government said, oh, they read our science, and they said, let's get encourage our citizens to play the piano. So they gave incentives. And might I say that happened first in Japan before they got rich. Then it happened, the same movement happened in Korea. And then about 20 years ago, it started happening in China. And I would cite all of these countries as examples of success, anecdotal, but for sure, without any doubt, playing the piano in particular is a brain development thing. And we should stop talking about teaching music, but we should talk about brain development in our society. And by the way, it creates a whole bunch of musically literate people that have a ball playing the piano or other instruments. So, I mean, for me, that is absolutely fundamental. And we've gotten the religious people, when they were in charge of our schools here in Quebec, like going back to the Greeks, they taught music, they taught physical education, and they taught mathematics as the base of their educational system. And we've thrown music out because we consider that to be a hobby. We don't get it, that it's not a hobby. Fundamentally, it's what does good to your brain, which is why you go to school. So I would argue that you don't need a piano, a keyboard could do. There's ways, I'm working on another project along those lines, but that's why I think if we can get our society, and again, a group of people knocking on the politicians' doors so that the politicians get that message, then all of a sudden you get, oh yeah, not only is it a great social activity, but it does this thing for our kids. It does it for old people as well. If you have a stroke, well, playing the piano will help get your brain back in shape. So there's all of these benefits that we're saying it's a hobby, and we're completely missing the boat. As far as I'm concerned, as piano technicians, as an industry, into why we should exist. And with that in mind, there's no reason that if we regroup, when we look at our industry, why can't we get more dog back in this fight? We should be teaching music. We should be having more going on. We should have more industry. That it's doable, is what I have to say. It truly is doable.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I'm trying to think this through. You know, I'm a scientist. I try to be skeptical about,
Please do.
But I feel like piano and violin are two of those instruments that tend to be the ones that get chosen as the instrument that's going to be good for your brain, kind of a thing, right? I mean, what are the other? We've got guitar, we've got flute and saxophone and oboe and trumpet, and there's instruments, but there
Drums.
is drums, yeah. But there seems to be something about those two, those two instruments, maybe you could say stringed instruments in general, where they seem to be chosen more for those early lessons that maybe would be for development's sake. Would you agree? Or am
Yeah.
I making a false
No, no, singing, of course, you forgot singing.
singing? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying
Do we know if there's research that those instruments themselves specifically are better for those things, or I'm trying to figure out why there's such a prevalence,
Yeah, there's a place in town called Brain Research in Music. It's a collaboration between McGill University and the University of Montreal. It's an independent institute, and they've done umpteen studies on this kind of thing. But what you get out of the piano is, first of all, the subtleties of each note. You get left hand, right hand. You get short-term, long-term memory.
Right.
All of the spatial recognition, eyes to ears, ears to fingers, etc. You've got all of the when they put the sensors on the masks on the head to see what part of the brain is firing up. When you're playing the piano, everything is going on. When every other instrument has less going on than the piano, other than organ, is the feet. So yeah, piano is superior that way.
Yeah,
but piano has it over the organ because you get the subtlety of controlling sound, which is a completely different part of the brain again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with the stringed instruments, my son's taking cello lessons right now, so I have a firsthand look at what it's like to learn a stringed instrument, and it might be good just for the sheer difficulty required to play. Because if I play, I mean, a trumpet or a saxophone or whatever, I mean, it's got the keys that make the notes. So you blow in it, as long as you're blowing the right way and you make the right key, you're pretty close on the note, and the intonation is pretty close. With a string instrument, the intonation, you really gotta your ear really has to be connected to your fingers, and you really have to tolerate not sounding good as a parent who's watching the kid play. Like, it's beautiful to me, but it's like, okay, that's a little bit out. That's a little bit out. But I think, yeah, in order to get good at it, you really have to take that on. And so I can see it's similar, coordinating multiple parts of the brain and learning, to recognize pitch and refinement in that domain and things like that. So
we're getting away from, it seems like we're getting away from talking about piano technology, but it's all connected. Why is our industry, you were saying, should people go into the industry, etc.? The answer is,
well, I'm thinking, what I'm trying to think through is the and maybe we pull up some of the articles at some point or whatever, but what's the legitimate science behind some of these instruments, be it violin or piano or whatever, that makes them special? Are they special? Because I like the sound of it, and I have to say, just personally, I'm hesitant to use these arguments myself, just because I haven't looked at the research in a way that I'm like nailed it. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to think through as well. Because I'm able to kind of sell it to someone if I really believe it, of course, like anybody could. You know what I mean? But it sounds like a great pathway towards, better for our profession. I would definitely say that. Yeah.
Well, just to complete your argument, and somebody asked a question. But the science is there. If you want, I'll try and get you a little bit, but it's absolutely conclusive. There's not even the shadow of a doubt. So many studies have been done over so many years. Continuing studies are going on, including here in Montreal. This is absolutely a no-brainer when it comes to the science. So you'll have to do your reading, but it's there. We just haven't paid attention to what's really actually important for our industry. You know, and we should pay attention to what's important for our industry. It's science is important. Why we play musical instruments is important. The reason we do things is important. And if we forget all of those things, well, you lose your. I mean, we're losing it. So I think we have to do this as a group. We have to do it, and as we don't seem to be able to do it as a group, I'm certainly not going to say, oh, somebody should do that. I am responsible for my own thoughts. Therefore, I am talking to you today about it, and I am actively actually working on these things personally. So it's not something, I'm not complaining. I have a dictum, which is stop complaining, do better. So what I'm telling you is something that I'm actually doing something about. Just as I you know, you complain about the action not being okay, well, do something about it. When everything, I'm a complainer, and that gets me in a lot of trouble, because then I have to put my money where my mouth is. I have a lifetime to fill of correcting what I see as the wrongs in my particular backyard. That's kind of what happened. Wayne can talk to that.
Yeah, I actually had heard a well-known technologist say recently that he sort of complains, but that's a sign of optimism, because he can see a better way, and I thought that was an interesting perspective. Let's go to the chat here for the questions. And we're supposed to sign off here pretty soon. Time's flying. Ken says, when is your first installer class?
Okay, well, what we're doing right now, we have our distribution. This is the business side of things. We have our distribution, we have our licensing people, we have our contracts in place. We even have first people who want to put it in their pianos. Another thing that we have, I didn't mention, is I have between $250,000 and $500,000 of actions to give away in Canada. How about that? To music institutions, universities, where you can get a tax credit. So the people that are giving the money, I have a few people that really like what I'm doing and like piano, and they're prepared to put up, roughly speaking, well, so far a little more than $250,000 would appear to be on the table, and there's talk of another 100,000 or so right now. I'm expecting that to go. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time it's $1 million, or $500,000 rather, that we'll be able to.
And how does that come about? Is that government?
Nope, private, 100% private. So what they want to do is take these actions that somebody will get out of a box with everything on it, go to a university or a concert hall or wherever there is an existing piano, take the action and put it in that piano, and then spend the 3 days. Now, the labor will not be paid for, but the parts will be, which cuts it down considerably, and of course it's a nice incentive. So we're going to do that in Canada, I believe. Maybe in the United States.
It's a tax rebate, you said, though?
Yeah, you get if you give to a charity, then you get a tax deduction. Usually it's something like 50%.
Okay.
So it opens the door for cutting the cost for an installation. And the idea is, from a marketing perspective, if we can get into all the universities, concert halls, etc., or at least a sufficient number of them, maybe 100, 150 across Canada, which is 10% your size, then we pretty much will have brought this product to market. And it's good enough that people that really like the piano are prepared to spend this, to give it away. That's how strong the support is at this point for what we're doing. It's really cool. Now, to get back to Ken's question, when are we going to do this? The missing link for us is a manufacturer of actions. If I can bring something out which, as you can see here, has a grand piano knuckle in it, etc., all the springs, etc. I buy that from Germany right now. A set of knuckles cost me, what is it, about $130. Once you go through every part that they're selling, it's crazy. It would cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to make an action. And if you get them properly made by an action maker, then we're expecting that we'll be able to sell these with hammers, the rails, everything ready to go for $2,500, which is amazing. So what we need is now, and I'm working on that at the NAM show, we're going to get that kickstarted to get a manufacturer, because I can't put all the knuckles in myself and sell them. I mean, it's not doable. That's where you need robotics, and you need, all this stuff to get the industry going again. Maybe in a few years, I'll have it in place. And in fact, I would hope to be able to do some of that, or somebody else do it. I don't care if somebody else does it. I'm happy.
Have you talked to WNG? Is this something that they would incorporate in their systems or something, or take part in?
I'm completely open to all kinds of things, but certainly the Walters are picking up the ball. And with my technology is much different than the WNG technology. Right. So theirs does the same thing in a different way. This is just a completely different technology. Right. Well, the numbers are 300% improvement over existing actions at the same cost. So, if you can do that, you're hitting the home run. It's more robust. It lasts longer. It's easy. I mean, the maintenance we've killed it. So now we have to get it out there, which is, we have to get somebody to manufacture it so that I can get it into your hands for a reasonable price. And then there will be a period of, anytime you do anything once, well, it's not going to be very good. So you do it twice, you do it 3 times. We think that the critical number of times to install an action is about 4. So we're going to encourage people to come either to the Walters factory in Indiana or to my place in Montreal, where we have much better smoked meat and bagels, and have a few people come up for the week and do this, and go home having had a week of learning, possibly go home with their own piano, certainly go home with actions. And then if they're attached to a university, concert halls, etc., then they could go home with 4 actions, a $10,000 gift, and put them in those institutions. So we're trying to make it a win as well for piano technicians. I mean, we're trying to make it a win all the way around. Where's the weakness? Make it go away.
Okay.
Is that sense? So until I have a manufacturer, I can't predict when the days are. Between now and getting a manufacturer to sign, earliest I could imagine would be the end of February, probably March, and 3 months after that, maybe they would have gotten everything in place. They will have to invest. We have all of the designs, but they'll have to invest in injection moldings for these parts, for these parts. All of the assembly stuff that goes on. There's a few other things that they'll have to do. It takes time to get things right. So I'm hoping that midsummer will be up and running, and that my Canadian friends can make a bundle. Maybe the American people have to think of doing the same model over there. Certainly people that love music, when they get a hold of this action, they go, wow, I want it to happen.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we should sign off here. I'll read this last comment in the chat, or last couple here. So Johan Krebs had made a comment: a big private school where he lives has tested students that include music in their education, includes a band as wind instrument, also requires differentiation. The grade point average of this group was 34 points higher than the no music group combined with drama. The average is 37 points higher. Nancy says, very interesting hour. Thank you. David says, interesting, informative, thought-provoking, much appreciated. Yeah. So yeah, we're about 10 minutes over, so I'll sign us off. But any last final thoughts, Oliver, before I do the outro?
No, once we have this manufacturing, I'll get back to you and let people know if they're in. Did anybody find this interesting?
Well, we have at least two people who explicitly stated it. So
Okay.
yeah, I think,
All
and
right.
now that's all Ken was very, Ken Zaringer was very interactive. And so I would say at least three.
Oh, there were up to
And I was,
three.
but yeah,
On the
we had,
global level, let's say we failed.
but I'm sure everybody else thought it was interesting too. But yeah, we're gonna put some links in the chat here in a minute for folks before we sign off. But yeah, I think it was great. And it's great to see. I always just admire people who are innovating and trying to do hard things. And like you said, if you're complaining about it, actually trying to fix it as opposed to just mouthing off at other people. So I think that's great. And I will say we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. And thanks, of course, to Oliver for joining us today, as well as Wayne for jumping in a little bit. And thanks for everyone for joining us in the audience. Appreciate that. Thanks to everyone who joined our masterclass on Thursday. Make sure that you sign up for it. Even though we did it live on Thursday, you may have missed it. The recording's always available after the fact, so you can do the one-time recording, or you can subscribe as a craft and subscription and just access all the recordings all at once. And we'll put the links in the chat in order to do that. And then, this is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you join us for just signing up for this session individually, you can make your life more convenient. You can subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. You can sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. And we'll see you again next week. Have fun at NAMM, Oliver. We'll talk to you later. Stay warm if you're up here in the north like we are. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.